Ladies and gents, winners, fan favorites, underrated, overrated, and everyone who's just rated internet. My name is Peridiam, and we are going to be talking about underrated Big Brother winners. I recently covered 10 of the most underrated non-winners in Big Brother history, and I figured going from there, let's give some credit to the players who already get enough of it. I would actually say most winners get more credit than they deserve, results-based thinking and all that, but when compared to one another, they are kind of in a league of their own, and you know what? Let's just go with it. Let's start with an honorable mention. My lone honorable mention is basically going to be my number 6 on this list, but not so much. It's debatable. It's Maggie Osborne from Big Brother 6. Maggie is a very strong winner. She's one of the best, and while I do regularly see her ranked rather high, I still believe there's a chance that she gets undersold and overlooked for the strategy that she employed most of that season, being the glue that held her alliance together literally until the final 2. Derek may have had a jury pact in BB16 to prevent anyone from taking Victoria to the final 2, but Maggie did this 10 seasons prior, and to this day is still the only winner in all of Big Brother to neither win part 1 or part 2 of the final HOH and still get to the final 2 and still win this season. I know that's an oddly specific stat, but it's indicative of Maggie's game, and I wanted to briefly comment on her being up for consideration as an honorable mention, despite not being in my top 5.
I win, I take Maggie. Janelle wins at the final, she takes Maggie. It's a win-win situation for Maggie. She's gonna go to the final too.
But my number 5 most underrated Big Brother winner, just edging out Maggie, is June Song from Big Brother 4. Now, okay, I want to say if you're a super fan and you're listening to me right now, you probably don't think June is that underrated, and I hear ya. But I think by and large, what June does on BB4 gets a little bit less credit in the wider world of the show than what I've seen. And on some level, I think I may have June above Maggie as a player, if only because June seems more dynamic and has more tricks up her sleeve than Maggie. I do think June is luckier, but I also think that her range as a player is wider. Take, for example, her strategy to be the house cook. Why a cook? Because food is the eternal people pleaser, because people love a good cook, and it always positioned her, quite literally, in the center of the house. When you spend a lot of your time in the kitchen, you get to see where everyone's going, given that the kitchen is in the middle of everything. She utilizes the X Factor twist of the season better than anyone, creating a secret alliance smokescreen with G, and she even discards G at the final 5 once he stops benefiting her. She easily pivots between both sides of the house all season, and while she's never anyone's number 1 ally, she's able to work with everyone in the house. She has options, and she takes advantage of them often. She works with the original 8 alliance, then joins the Dream Team, then works with Dana, then flips between the Stooges and Jack and Erica, meanwhile fostering a final 2 deal with Allison, likely the only player that she can even beat. But June's position was so formidable, she was nigh untouchable, the eternal +1 to anyone who needed her, and so why take her out? Nobody did, and between herself and Allison coining the floating strategy, a strategy we still see used to this day, I gotta give her even more credit for everything she does than I usually see her given already. But on the outro of talking about June, I will say that I could be easily persuaded to put somebody else at my number 5. I think there's a larger gap between my number 5 and my number 4.
The queen of the Big Brother house would probably be me. I'm just a naturally happy person who people just gravitate towards. I think being queen of the house, to me, it represents kind of control/power.
June can, use reverse psychology. June is an extremely dangerous player.
June, as a player in this house, is very savvy. She's very smart, but she could be very sneaky.
June plays this game with her head. She flies under the radar, and planes that fly under the radar dump their load on you and leave, and you don't know what hit you.
June has been and always will be a dangerous player in this game. You don't know what side she's on, you don't know what she's thinking, but that's her greatest asset.
Number 4. This is going to be a spicy meatball. And no, I'm not talking about Josh. I'm talking about the first player to beat Paul. It is Nicole Franzel from Big Brother 18. I actually debated if I should put Nicole here at all after Big Brother 22, since I think more people are going to take her seriously given she almost won All Stars 2. But nevertheless, it is early days, and I think she usually just doesn't get enough credit for the low-key game she played many years ago on Big Brother 18. So, Nicole had an advantage being a returning player. She was already in an alliance with the 4 captains, and together they formed the 8-pack, another mega alliance we all love to see. But right away, Nicole leaves her mark on the season by convincing her team to give her the first HOH, which we have seen as of late in Modern Big Brother is a great place to be. She creates a monster of a meat shield in Corey, continuously pumping him up to the rest of the house so that he would have to be evicted before her, but she's also tied to many other power players, particularly Paulie as well as Paul and James. BB18 really is a season run by the guys, and Nicole positions herself to be in their good graces, never a target to go after first, or even second. Nicole tends to pull off the sandbagging strategy where you play the first half of the game very low to the ground, don't make a lot of waves, don't show your cards often or be seen as much of a threat, and then turn up the heat in the endgame. I mean, she nearly did this twice, and almost became the first 2-time winner in Big Brother history doing it. Nicole isn't perfect, neither is June or anyone on this list. She does get called out as a snake by Day and Frank and manages to make enemies as the season goes on, but she also gets all of them out. Her move against Michelle at the final 7 was perfect, and her endgame bouncing between the Sitting Ducks Alliance and Jadley was nearly foolproof. Juggling numerous duos on a tightrope is tricky, but she did it better than anyone that season. Nicole had a nearly locked final 3 spot the moment that she won the final 7 HOH, just based on the social dynamics of that endgame, and she wasn't a goat being dragged, and that is something remarkable. Yeah, she probably does take Corey to the final 2, she probably loses to Corey, but Corey was always going before her, and from there, she is the winner.
If I could choose this week, I want Michelle packing.
My final 4 plan with James and Natalie, and my final 4 plan with Victor and Paul will stay intact if Michelle leaves this week.
Strategically, sorry, Michelle, I have to vote to evict you.
There's only 3 votes this week, so really, Corey and I control who goes home, but I want everybody in the final 4 to be comfortable with what we choose.
Natalie, you are evicted from the Big Brother house.
I'm ready to make some strategic moves. That's my favorite part of this game.
You want to make some moves? Yeah.
Duh.
Victor, you are evicted from the Big Brother house.
Let's go.
She went for you because that was strategically the smartest, most beneficial move.
The reason why they chose me because they had you two working with them.
Exactly. So that's
pure
strategy.
I cannot believe I'm sitting here building a case with Nicole. But Nicole, no shade to you men, but she was Geppetto and y'all were Pinocchio.
Number 3. On the ratio of how underrated I see this winner in the community to a player's ability and gameplay, I gotta give my number 3 spot to Steve Moses from Big Brother 17. Steve is done a major disservice with the editing of the episodes to what he actually did in the house, but he wasn't a risky or flashy player, certainly wasn't in the limelight very often, and was greatly overshadowed by the Liz twins, Austin, Vanessa, Clelly, James, Johnny Mac, Audrey Day, Jason, the list. Literally the whole cast. The list goes on. I think Steve is either the most underedited winner ever or second most, right behind Andy, and it is a shame. The man plays up his nerdy persona well, fits his casting archetype to a T, but he does so to draw less threat on himself. The Power Alliance that season, the Scamper Squad, were all the outsiders in the early days of BB17. But Steve had a strong bond with Vanessa and Johnny Mac, and together he let everyone else serve as a shield for him week after week. Steve was aware of his position. He was intentionally on the bottom to never be a target, but he also had his targets appropriately set up going into the first double eviction, neutralizing Jackie and that alliance, as well as getting cozy to Vanessa in the endgame. Vanessa is often cited as one of the best players to never win, one of the best women to ever play the game in the history of the show. Steve was Vanessa's blind spot. She trusted him enough to keep him around, and he knew better than to pull a Cody from the season prior. Although fast forwarding now to 2020, that might have a different meaning. While I don't think Steve is the best player that season, I do think he gets underrated for what he does accomplish and how successful he likely would be on any season of the show. Summer of Steve 2015.
Vanessa, of course I'm going to try to pull a deal out of Liz. You would do the same thing and you'd be a hypocrite to say you're not okay with what I did. Vanessa, what are you doing? The whole point of my HOH last week was to get us a numbers advantage, so it's 3-on-2 going into Final 5. That was the function of my HOH. If you go against Johnny Mac, instead of next week being 3-on-1, it's going to be 2-on-2, and we're right back where we started. This doesn't help you at all.
I feel like my relationship with Steve is strong enough that even if he wins the final HOH, he'll take me to Final 2.
I need to win part 3 of this HOH because I can't beat Vanessa in the end. She's played an amazing game, and I know the jury's really going to respect me for finally being the one to get rid of her.
Whenever it meant winning a competition that would put unnecessary blood on his hands, he immediately throws it. As soon as he needs to win it for either a strategic move for himself or saving himself in a veto, that's when he turns it on and he wins.
You always told me that I had to make the move I could justify to the superfans and to my family, and I can't justify taking the stronger player with me, which means I'm so sorry, Vanessa. I have to vote to evict you.
Number 2. It's the original 9-vote getter in the finals, the Princess of Darkness, the woman who told her showmance, it's Lisa Donahue from Big Brother 3. Another week 1 HOH shows up, but from a very different era. Lisa is a social butterfly that was in the good graces of the entire house, and since the entire season was on the jury, not a bad spot to be in. Many people have asked how Danielle lost this season, and there's a long answer beyond just the jury wasn't sequestered, because I think when you look at the details, a sequestered jury doesn't change the results all that much. And a large part of that is what Lisa is able to accomplish throughout her journey from start to finish. I said this a year ago, I said this like a couple months ago, and I will say it again right now. Lisa learned from the best. She is the apprentice to Danielle's master, but she did start the season in a good spot. First HOH of the season, and the big alliance rallied around her power position. She gets into a showmance alliance with Eric, Roddy, and Kiara, but this falls apart not through any fault of her own, and in fact, she is easily proven the most adaptable player of the bunch when she pivots in week 5 and plays nice to Kiara, despite knowing Kiara is no longer her ally.
You're juggling, baby, and you're dropping your balls.
First of all, you shut the up.
You know what?
What?
I keep my mouth shut, my eyes open. And I know a lot more about this house than you think I do.
Well, that's part of me was tempted to just shut that mat room door right in her face. But I still need her on my side somehow.
She becomes a lot more cunning in the second half of this season, never winning a competition until the final 3, only being nominated in the second half at the final 4, and still guaranteeing herself a spot by making a deal with Danielle to take her to the final 2 if she won the HOH. Which she did. Lisa should have been evicted at the final 4, but Lisa made sure that wasn't gonna happen, especially after being blindsided in the previous vote. Is she a top tier winner? But like the rest on this list, I tend to start these entries sort of justifying why I'm having them in the video in the first place, which to me tells me there's something to the truth about having them this high as underrated winners. I don't think she gets much credit for all that she does, with how she pivots, with the conviction she holds as she matures through the game, smiling in the final 2, smiling in front of the jury, knowing she's in a great spot to take it all.
When Eric left, even though he took a big part of me, a new part of me came in, and she was ready to play a game.
Just to let you know, I know things.
Turns out she did pretty good for herself.
I vote to evict Kiara.
I vote to evict Jerry. I vote to evict Roddy. I made it to the final 2 by playing the game. I saved all of my strength, and I listened.
Correct answer is Lisa.
Do you have any regrets? None at all.
Big Brother 3, final 2, Danielle and Lisa.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are all winners.
To us.
Final 2.
Final 2.
She seems innocent, but come on now. We're all competitors here.
Number 1. It's the half man, half machine. It's Dr. Will Kirby. Okay, yeah, no, you're not gonna buy that one. It's actually Dan Giesling. Nope, not gonna believe that one either. Okay, Derek. All right, fine. You know what? It's Eddie from Big Brother 1. Whoa, didn't see that one coming. Yeah, there was no game being played back then, But does that mean that he wasn't still a good player? Actually, yes it does. I don't think he can be a good player if he didn't play. Wait, what? Peridiam, stop screwing around, man. Okay. Anyway, my true #1 most underrated Big Brother winner is none of the above. It is Drew Daniel from Big Brother 5. And yes, I am being serious. While he didn't give me much to work with as a character, I will say his game this season is quite underrated and oftentimes just straight up forgotten about. To start, Drew joins the rough draft version of the brigade, the Four Horsemen, and they're off to the races. The Four Horsemen control the early game, and it is readily apparent Drew is the best player of the bunch. He wins HOH in week 3, and so far his alliance is steamrolling, until he does something quite odd. Drew nominates the showmance of one of his allies, and then cries about it, and then regrets it, and then pivots hard right after and puts himself in the best position of the entire house for basically the rest of the season. This week 3 is a bizarre one, and I see a lot of people say it's one of the worst HOHs ever, and I think I gotta disagree. It's both to Drew's advantage and his detriment. He initially makes what should be a bad move on paper, but then makes lemonade out of the lemon that he created himself to find himself looking like some kind of 4D chess-playing Elizabeth Harmon mastermind. Although Drew takes out a number for his side, it's important to realize how he behaves this week, because I think it's his disposition that carries the day. And really, it goes to show you that Big Brother is never as simple as what you see on paper. He truly laments his decision to turn on his allies, and the entire house knows this. They feel bad for him. They underestimate him. And I think some of this is intentional, especially given what he does later in the season and what he shows us he's capable of doing.
I still don't totally agree with taking Holly off the block. It's a very hard balancing act to figure out, do I listen to people on my side or I listen to myself, looking out for myself down the road. Right now, I feel like I'm a spider in the middle of its web. And I feel as though my web is attached to each person in this house, and it's pulling me in all these different directions. And in the end, it's my choice, and when I make the decision, they're going to have to live with it, and I'm going to have to live with it. And this house is just a crazy nut house.
He gets into the most powerful showmance of old school Big Brother up to that point with Diane, the two best players of the season working side by side, and from there he is truly no longer with the Four Horsemen. But they don't know that yet. It's the ability to be both on top and under the radar that impresses me. And as far as I can tell, not many people are catching on to Drew here. Fast forwarding through the 6-finger plan, once Jace is evicted, Drew and Diane align with the twins to the end, and by the time the twins are disposed of, it really becomes the Drew show as he wins 3 of the final 4 HOHs of the season, only being nominated 1 time at the final 5 and never sitting on the block come eviction night all season. Likewise, he gets picked in every single veto comp of the season. Literally all of them. Drew plays in every single veto comp, all because of his social game, not luck.
I'm gonna go with Drew.
All right. Then I'll choose Pretty Boy Drew.
Drew!
Pretty Boy Drew.
I picked Drew just out of respect that he has for me.
I will choose Drew. I chose him because I felt that he was the most neutral player in the house. I'm going to go with Drew.
As HOH, I will pick my player first. I'm going to pick Pretty Boy from the Buckeye State, Mr. Drew. Come on up here and join me, buddy.
Oh, well, then I was hoping maybe my house boyfriend could save me too, so Drew.
Trying to save you, girl.
I picked Drew because he really wants some retribution on Jace.
The 6-finger plan at the final 10 is even thrown to Drew to take out Jace, his former ally. That's how much they trusted him. Drew also totally snows Diane toward the end of the show. At the final 6, he nominates her in a move that kind of reminds me of Dan snowing Danielle on BB14 with the funeral. He puts her up, she's baffled, then he turns it around to diffuse her emotions by saying how it's all strategic, all a part of the plan.
Hopefully by doing this makes you and I not look as close as what people may think, and I think that we need to stop sleeping in the same bed together. You know what I'm saying?
I was kind of playing Diane to try to get this response out of her, because I know, like, Diane is the kind of person that if you tell her to act a certain way, then she's not gonna play it as well as if it was actually like natural reactions.
And even at the final 3, when he cuts Diane to beat Cowboy, I think both Cowboy and Diane take him had either of them won the final 3 HOH, and I think he likely still beats both of them just based on how the jury was feeling. At worst, it's 4-3, but I think that there might be a reality where he sweeps it 7-0 against Diane. All in all, Drew was always going to be number 1 on this list for me. While he is one of my least favorite characters as far as winners go, I think he's a rather good player that learns the ropes as the season progresses, but still has an innate skill set for the game that would likely translate to any season. He's likable, attractive, not overbearing, has a decent strategic head on his shoulders, and all around positions himself well every week. But I rarely hear about it, and that, ultimately, is the point of this video.
Personal aside, Cowboy, I feel as though I've had to make more strategic decisions. I just feel as though I played this game as a player. I made stronger moves strategically than you, Cowboy. I feel for those reasons, Will, that I should be picked in the number 1 spot instead of number 2.
Good answer. Right now we have 3 votes for Michael, 3 votes for Drew. This last vote cast by Will decide the winner of Big Brother 5. And the winner of Big Brother 5 is Drew. Congratulations. You are the official winner of Big Brother 5, Drew.
And those are my top 5 most underrated Big Brother winners. And I just want to say that after talking about the term underrated for the past 3 weeks, it has shown me that there is a very wide stretch of perception about how the seasons and the players and the games being played and the moment to moments being observed from us, the viewers and the fans, varies wildly in how we analyze it and what we choose to give importance to or not give importance to. But I do want to say thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think about this top 5. And I also am curious to know from your perspective, who would you put as some of the most underrated Big Brother winners and why? I definitely don't expect everyone to agree with what I have to say in this video, and that's okay. That's just how the ball rolls. Thank you to my patrons and to those on the screen. And in the end, on your way out, don't forget that Cowboy still got 3 jury votes, and I will see you in the next one once I remind myself that, gosh darn it, anything is possible.
If karma's, now listen now, if karma's a boomerang, I'll see you sooner than later.
If what?
If karma is a boomerang, I'll see you sooner than later.
Okay. I don't know what karma is. But, I don't get that because I don't believe in karma. I didn't know if he meant karma electra. Maybe it is karma electra. No, what do you mean? Because that'd be cool because I could throw some dance moves with her now. I like to dance, so.